You're listening to the School Leadership Reimagined podcast, episode 239. How do builders like us make a dramatic difference in the lives of our students in spite of all the obstacles we face? How do you keep your vision for your school from being held hostage by resistant teachers, uncooperative parents, ridiculous district policies, or lack of time, money, or resources? If you're facing those challenges right now, here is where you'll find the answers, strategies, and actionable tips you need to overcome any obstacle you face. You don't have to wait to make a difference in the lives of the people you serve. You can turn your school into a success story right now with the people and resources you already have. Let's get started. Hey builders, welcome to another episode of the School Leadership Reimagined podcast. I'm your host, Robin Jackson, and today I want to continue a series that I started last time. So last time I talked about why it is that we don't really believe that 100% success is possible. And I broke it down into two things. The first thing is that we have to create belief. The reason that we don't believe is that we've never experienced it. And because we've never experienced that kind of success, it's hard for us to conceptualize it, to see it as possible. So we have to build on what we have experienced and then create that momentum and over time nurture belief so that we can believe that it's possible. And then the second reason that we don't believe it's possible is that we don't know how to make it possible. We overcomplicate it. We think it's going to be some big grand program or we need a whole bunch of extra resources to make it happen. We don't believe it's possible with the teachers we have because we really don't know how to build teachers' capacity. And so over the course of the next several episodes, I'm going to break down just how simple it is to build teachers' capacity. So today we're going to talk about the actual building of the capacity. What does it take? And I told you last time that there are really only 7 things you need to do as a school to grow teachers' capacity instructionally to make every child in your school successful. Everything else is a preference. And so we're going to break down the first 3 things this time. So we're going to talk about the first 3 principles. I'm going to break them down and show you why they're so important, and then help you from the lens of a builder begin to look at what you can immediately start putting in place in your school to make these things happen so that you can begin to build that momentum towards 100% success. Now, I need to say from the very beginning that these 7 principles I've been talking about for almost 20 years now. I think it has been about 20 years that I started talking about these 7 principles of effective instruction. They are the principles that I used in my own classroom. They are the principles that I have taught tens of thousands of other, I think it's hundreds of thousands of educators at this point, how to use successfully. The principles work. And the reason that we are focusing on principles rather than practices is because principles last. They're timeless. Principles will last for as long as we are teaching. They have been in place for years. Now, all I've done is kind of articulated and codified them, but these principles have been in play and have been talked about for years as this is what it takes to help other human beings learn. So they're timeless. The second thing is that they are personality agnostic, subject area agnostic, school situation agnostic. These principles work no matter who the teacher is. They work always because they are principles, they're laws. They work because it doesn't matter the person. So I used the illustration last time, if I drop something, if I hold a bottle of water in the air and I let it go, it will always drop, not because of anything that I've done, but because there's a law of gravity that is happening. The same thing is true for the principles. They work no matter who the person is because they are principles, they're laws. So they always work. Now, the good news for that is it means that teachers don't have to fit in some sort of cookie cutter image of what we think a master teacher is in order for the principles to work. They always work. So if we focus on developing these principles, it helps us to help any teacher become a master teacher. If they master these principles, they are a master teacher. It's just that simple. The third thing is that these principles well, not only are they timeless, not only do they always work, but they work with anything. So if your district changes the direction that it's going in, you don't have to relearn something new. The principles apply. If the curriculum changes in another year, you don't have to learn something new. The principles always apply. So that's why I love talking about principles because they always work. They work with anyone in any context. And and there are only 7 of them, so they're very simple. And once you learn them, you can deploy them over and over and over again to achieve 100% success. So, we're going to talk about principles today. Now, the only other disclaimer I need to make is this. I am shameless about saying that any teacher can become a master teacher with the right kind of support and practice. And so the idea around principles is predicated on this idea that when you help teachers master principles, they become a master teacher. In fact, my definition of a master teacher is someone who can help any child be successful in the classroom. That's my definition of a master teacher. And how does that person help any child be successful in the classroom? Because they've mastered the principles of effective instruction. So we kind of put master teachers on this big pedestal. We treat them like unicorns, right? So we are always, like even teachers who are master teachers are reluctant to call themselves master teachers because we make mastery teaching akin to sainthood. Or we make mastery teaching just someone who has gotten the highest marks on whatever teacher evaluation we've used, and we've turned mastery teaching into some designation on an instrument, and we've kind of dulled the potency of what a true master teacher is. If you can help every child be successful in the classroom, you are a master teacher. If you have teachers in your building who can help every child, no matter who that child is, be successful in their classroom, that teacher is a master teacher, period. And the only way you get there is not by scoring high on your district's instrument. The only way you get there is by consistently practicing the 7 principles of effective instruction. Fight me. So here's what we're going to do. Today, we're going to break down the first 3 principles. We're going to show you why they work. And then we're going to talk about how you can begin to help teachers in your building develop these principles in their instruction. Now, those of you who are in Buildership University, you've got training on this. We're adding some more training on this towards the beginning of the year. So you're going to get even more training on this. And you know that when you're building your one plan, this is the point of the one plan. So for those of you who are not in Buildership University, let me tell you what the one plan is. Right after people in Buildership University create their vision and their vision story, which is so powerful, the very next step that they're going to take is that they build a one plan. And the one plan breaks down how they are going to achieve their 100% vision in their school by consistently applying these 7 principles of instruction in every single classroom. Now, the beauty about the one plan is that once you have a one plan, and the reason we call it a one plan, it's because you're only doing the most important thing in every category. And the power of the one plan is that when you do that, you have you've created the blueprint to exactly how you're going to get to 100% success. And if everything, if everything blows up and you have to take it and pare things back to the basics, you're saying if we just did these 7 things, we could achieve 100% success. And when you complete the one plan, you feel like, oh my goodness, it's like you've seen inside the matrix. Instead of 100% success being this black box, this thing I desire, but that's very amorphous, 100% success, it's very clean and very clear. You see it. You see exactly how you're going to get there. That feeling of being able to know not only here's my vision and I'm committed to it, I'm passionate about it, but here's my one plan that's going to help me get there. You feel unstoppable, and you are unstoppable because you're building a plan not around a program or the framework du jour, the trend thing that everybody's doing right now that everybody says is going to work. You're building it around principles that are timeless, principles that work no matter what, principles that are situation and context agnostic, which means you can have confidence in your plan. And then when people challenge your vision, you can say, whatever, because I have a plan and here's how we're going to get there. And then that gives you focus. Instead of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, when you go to work every day, you know what's important. When you walk into a classroom and give teachers feedback, you know what feedback is the most important. When you are planning support for teachers, you know what supports are the most important. When you are helping people be accountable, you know what things they need to do that are absolutely non-negotiable. When you are building your budget and your plan or you're hiring people, you know what you need because you know what you're trying to accomplish and you know what fits in your plan. And your one plan also helps you to push back when the district is pushing you in a different direction. And if you can't push back, your one plan shows you how to handle that district push in a way that's authentic to your school and serves your bigger vision, mission, and core values. So I can't talk enough about the one plan. And so these principles are at the heart of the one plan. If you can understand these principles and you can look at instruction through the lens of these principles and you can start building these principles into your school, you will achieve 100% success. So let's dive in. Principle number 1 is start where your students are. Now, you might hear that and say, duh, I mean, of course. But do we? In most cases, we want our kids to get on our page. We're not getting on their page. And as a result, it feels like we're always dragging kids to the goal. People talk about, oh, we need kids more engaged. You know what creates engagement? Starting where students are. People say, oh, we need, to take care of SEL issues. And we just kind of try to guess at what SEL issues the kids are dealing with. You know what will help with kids' SEL issues? Starting where students are. And starting with students are is twofold. The first step is you got to start where students are as people. Now, and I break this down a little bit more in my book, Never Work Harder Than Your Students. And I introduce this idea of currency. And it's simply this. Everybody is trying to get something. And we use the currencies that we have in order to get what we want from life. And your kids are coming to the classroom and they're wanting something out of that experience. And they're using the currencies that they have to try to get something out of that classroom experience. Now, I know that sounds kind of theoretical, but let's just talk about it. But the kids want attention. They want acceptance. They want affirmation. They're things that kids want from you, from their experience in the classroom. And the way that they try to get it, let's take attention, for example. They can get attention by performing and doing everything that you ask them to do. They can get attention by falling out their chair at a quiet moment in a lesson. They can get attention by refusing to do what you ask them to do. There are all kinds of ways to get attention. And if you understand what kids are trying to get, then you can pay attention to the currency. And if the currency is not appropriate, you can help them develop currencies that work in your classroom. You don't tell a kid a behavior is necessarily bad or wrong. You just say, wrong currency. Let me help you develop a currency that's going to work here. Now, I see the comments blowing up now because people are saying it can't be that simple. At its fundamental level, it really is that simple. It really is that simple. And so if we understood that, then a lot of the discipline problems that we're dealing with go away. A lot of the SEL problems that we're trying to tackle become tackleable. Did I just make that word up? They become, you're able to tackle them now and really meet kids where they need to be met. So if teachers understood that, if we helped teachers get better about spotting the need behind the behavior, if we help teachers get better about understanding what kids need and then delivering on that, then a lot of the classroom management issues, a lot of the personality issues that we have, a lot of the conflicts that we see in classrooms, they just go away. And the better we get at starting where kids are, understanding what they need, the better we get at serving them. That's one of the reasons why I believe will drivers are so powerful. Now, if you're a principal, you probably came across the will driver work because you're trying to get teachers, trying to understand how to get your teachers motivated. But the will driver work actually started when I was trying to figure out how to motivate kids. So if you can understand that every person is motivated by four things: mastery, purpose, autonomy, and belonging. And if you also understand that although we're all motivated by all four, we need all four to be motivated, each one of us has a dominant will driver. And if your teachers really understood that and could get good at spotting the dominant will drivers for kids, then you don't have motivation problems in your school because you're meeting the kids' needs. So starting where students are, you have to look at the who the kid is. But the other part of it is, do I understand where they are academically? Do I understand where they're starting from? What skills they have? What do they know? What are they already capable of doing? And then I can build on that. Most of the time, we just dive into the unit. But if we just did some things to really understand where kids are before we dove into the unit, then we could get kids engaged in the unit. We could help build on the skills that they have. And we could also start teaching them some things that they don't have so that they can be more successful. So I'm not just talking about pre-testing, because even though that's a part of it, but you also need to understand what background knowledge is required by the curriculum, and do the kids have that background knowledge? What are some of the quote unquote soft skills that are required by what you're about to teach, and do kids have those soft skills? And if they don't, you need to help them acquire it so that they can actually access your lesson. It seems like common sense, but we spend a whole bunch of time talking about all this other stuff. Listen, I'm a big advocate for differentiated instruction, but if you don't understand some of the basics about what kids need, you can't differentiate. The principle undergirding differentiated instruction is start where students are, and principle 2, know where students are going, which we'll talk about in a second. So if you are saying, well, I just need my teachers to differentiate, but you haven't really dug into the principle of starting where your students are, they can't do it. Now, what does this have to do with you as a builder? Like, on one hand, understanding how to recognize that a teacher doesn't know how to start where students are, and understanding how to help teachers do that is really a huge part of what you need to do and to build up a teacher's instructional capacity so that they can reach all students. Yeah, I get that. But the other piece is this. What is your vision? Your vision might be 100% of kids need to read at or above grade level. Okay, then where do we need to start with kids? How do we need to start with kids in order to get them there? That's what you need to be thinking about as a builder. So if I want all my kids reading at or above grade level, starting where students are is going to really have to say, well, what is the information that I need about kids in order to help them to be able to read at grade level? I need a couple of things. I need to know and understand what their past experiences with reading have been. I need to understand where they are with some of the big reading behaviors like comprehension and fluency and all the other things. I need to know that. I also need to know a little bit about who the kid is. What are they interested in? What do they like doing? So that I can help them find reading materials that they want to read. So starting with students, how do I find that information out? What can we do school-wide to help teachers start where kids are that allow the teachers to be effective in helping every kid read? If you have not thought that through and you don't understand that, then it's going to be hard to achieve 100%. So, first principle, how do we start where students are? Now, What people do is when they hear that, they're like, oh, we'll do surveys or, oh, we'll do pre-teaching and pre-testing. Those things are great. But if they're not going to help all kids read at or above grade level, you don't need to do them. They're not important. Starting where students are is a principle. And as a builder, your job is to take that principle and say, how can I leverage this principle to achieve this vision? So what is it? What does it look like? What do you need to be doing right now? What's your vision? You got to start there. What is your vision? And then based on my vision, what is the one thing that I could do that helps my teachers start where kids are so that my teachers can achieve that vision for every child in their classroom? So the test is, will it get me to my vision and will it work for every kid? If the answer is no, you don't need to be doing it. Okay, principle number 2, know where the kids are going. Duh, right? If the teachers don't know where the kids are going, how can they get the kids there? It seems obvious. And yet, when I go into schools, the number of people who have no real understanding of where kids are going is astonishing. We have to make sure that our teachers understand. Now, what we do is we do all this curriculum work, or, we do this, ridiculous unpacking of standards where we circle nouns and underline verbs. Y'all can tell that's a pet peeve of mine. I've mentioned that several times, but we're wasting people's time, and they walk out of that training and they still don't understand where kids are going. We have a whole training. For those of you in BU, it's in the vault that you can look at around rigor and understanding it and what are the 5 things that every curriculum asks of kids. And we have a whole planning process we use to show teachers how to kind of just break down any standard and plan backwards from the standard around those 5 things. Simplifies things significantly. But once you understand that, you always know where kids are going. You look at a standard, you say, okay, what is the thinking process demanded by this standard? Got it? All right, now I know how to teach it. It really is that simple. I mean, we spend all this time kind of, writing all these curriculum documents and then supporting documents and the revised documents and then cheat sheets on the bulky 25-page lesson. And we have all these, we collect lesson plans and we read them and we look, does teacher have the standard and what's the depth of knowledge and do they have depth of, oh my goodness. We make teaching too hard. All we need to do is remember the principle. Do the teachers understand what is demanded by the standard? Not just what the standard says, but what does the standard mean? Can teachers operationalize the standard? If they can do that, they can teach it. And a lot of our instructional problems go away if we just do that. So what does a builder do? They understand that, and so they simplify going through the curriculum. When teachers are getting together in PLCs, I'll be honest, I don't really care if they write a lesson plan. I'm more interested in the trajectory of the unit. Does a teacher understand the standards that are driving that unit? And a unit of instruction could be a day, it could be a week, it could be 3 weeks. All I'm doing, I count a unit as what is the trajectory to get kids to master that standard. If you can do it in a day, great. If you can do it in a week, fine. If it's going to take you 3 weeks, fine. All I want to know is how are you going to help kids get to that standard? Standard sits at the top of the unit. And then in PLC time, when teachers are collaborating together, it makes sense to have teachers collaborating around moving kids closer and closer to that standard, creating learning experiences that help students make steady progress to mastering that standard. That's it. We waste PLC time with this protocol and that protocol. If we could just get our teachers focused on that with their planning, then the individual lesson plans kind of write themselves. So we're spending a lot of time on the lesson plans. What are you doing today? Rather than helping teachers think about what does the whole trajectory look like? And then after you understand that, then break it down day by day by day on how you're going to get there. So as a builder, what is the one thing or process that all of your teachers need to do to ensure that your teachers have a clarity around where kids are going and how they're going to get the kids there. You do that, you're going to get 100% success. So start where your students are, principle number 1. Know where your students are going, principle number 2. And the third one we're going to talk about today is expect your students to get there. This one I call the neglected principle. And it basically works like this. We all talk about teachers need high expectations of kids. It's kind of hard to have high expectations of kids when the kids are struggling and have been struggling for a long time, or the kids have shut down, or the kids are combative, or the kids aren't there. So how do you have high expectations of kids? It's people talk about the Pygmalion effect without really understanding the Pygmalion effect. So Pygmalion began as a Greek myth, and it's about a sculptor named Pygmalion. And he sculpted a woman so beautiful, he fell in love with the woman. And so people say if you just love something hard enough and long enough, then you can help that thing become real. So Pygmalion fell in love with this sculpture, the woman, and then loved her so much that eventually the goddess, I think Aphrodite, made the sculpture real. And so we say, oh, if we could just love our kids and believe in our kids enough, then the kids can become, they rise to the level of our expectation. But you're kind of missing the point. Pygmalion was such a good sculptor that he sculpted something so beautiful that even he fell in love with it. And as a teacher, that's what you want your teachers to do. It's not that I want my teachers to believe in my kids. I want my teachers to believe in themselves. I want my teachers to have such confidence in their ability to reach every single student that they do whatever it takes to get there. You see, if I ask a teacher to believe in the kids, the moment they run across a kid they don't like or they are struggling with, then they start blaming the kids. I don't want the teachers looking at the kids at all. In that regard, I want the teachers looking at themselves. I want the teachers to say, there's not a kid out here I can't teach. There's not a kid out here who's going to beat me. I remember I was sitting in a team meeting once. I was an assistant principal at school, and I was sitting in on a team meeting, and the team leader was talking about a kid that had come up in our team meetings for over a month. The kid was really struggling. Nothing that any of the teachers were doing was working. And the team leader, who was a social studies teacher, was giving the student a test, a map test. And so the kid had to kind of label things on a map. And I don't really understand the curriculum well enough to kind of tell you about it, but it was a test a map test. And the student did not do well on the test at all. And the teacher was saying, I couldn't understand. I needed to understand why the student was struggling so that I could help him. And she said she was sitting down with the student saying, well, so tell me how you're seeing the map. And she noticed that the student would kind of, was really getting confused about the map. And so she just took a piece of paper and covered up part of the map. And as soon as she did that, the student could focus on the part of the map that was most important and immediately identify things. And so then she said, okay, so here's what I want you to do. We're going to take the map test again, but this time we're going to cover up the map and you're going to only answer questions that pertain to this part of the map. And then once you've done that, then we're going to uncover that and cover up another part of the map. And she did that, and the student passed the test with flying colors. And I remember sitting there in awe of this teacher. Because the teacher, it wasn't that she had this unshakable belief in the student. The teacher just said, I'm really curious about this student. The teacher started where the student was and said, I got to understand how this kid thinks. She knew where the kid was going. She knew the purpose of the map test. So she knew how to adjust it to make it meet the needs of that kid. And then she believed that if she just was curious enough and she kept working, she could unlock how to reach this kid. And she did. What would happen in your school if all of your teachers started where your students were? If all of your teachers had clarity around where your kids were going, so that way they understood it so well that they could adjust it and to meet the kids' needs or to meet the pacing needs of your school. They understood the curriculum well enough that they could teach kids to mastery, and they had the expectation that they could get the kids where the kids needed to be. They had this efficacy that said, "There's not a kid I can't help learn." So my challenge to you this week is this. I want you to think about these first three principles. Start where your students are, know where they're going, expect to get them there. And then I want you to look at your goal, your vision for your school. And I want you to ask yourself, if we're going to get there, what's the most important thing teachers need to do in order to start where students are? What's the most important thing that teachers need to do to make sure that they have clarity about where kids are going? And what is the most important thing teachers need to do to expect kids to get there? If you just did that, and you cut out all the noise, all the other nonsense, and just focused on that, where might your school be? If instead of trying to do all the things, you could just narrow it down to those most important things, what difference would it make in the instruction in your school? So let's take those first three principles. Let's figure out what it would take, what we need to do in our school. If everybody did those three things, then it could get us closer to our 100% vision. And then go and get rid of everything else and focus on those three things. And if you did that, you could go a lot farther and faster, because instead of kind of hoping and guessing and throwing everything at instruction, you really broke it down to the most fundamental elements, like a builder. I'll talk to you next time. Hey, if you're ready to get started being a builder right away, then I want to invite you to join us at Buildership University. It's our exclusive online community for builders just like you, where you'll be able to get the exact training that you need to turn your school into a success story right now with the people and resources you already have. Inside, you'll find our best online courses, live trainings with me, tons of resources, templates, and exemplars, and monthly live office hours with me, where you can ask me anything and get my help on whatever challenge you're facing right now. If you're tired of hitting obstacle after obstacle and you're sick of tiny little incremental gains each year, if you're ready to make a dramatic difference in your school right now, then you need to join Buildership University. Just go to buildershipuniversity.com and get started writing your school success story today.